Hello everyone, this is Mac here and I welcome you all to my YouTube channel which is called Mac Vlogs. Oh ho ho, we have little girl out here. I wouldn't say out here, I would say sitting in Dubai. My YouTube channel which is called Mac Vlogs. Whoops, I think we have little girl out 1 second. I would say sitting in Dubai. I think I better close the volume. That was on my part. At least it's going to be echoed. So we have a guest of mine, Deeba Hasan, sitting in Dubai, and we're going to be discussing about a topic, being a journalist. Okay. Now this topic is really fascinating. Why? Because this young girl who I have seen grown up in front of me from Oman days has achieved and been achieving and working on her goals in Dubai at the moment. And she's a very famous lady. Everybody knows her. And I want to inspire all the young girls out there through Diva because what she has achieved, I want even half of what some of the young girls can achieve in India, Pakistan, and Middle East. That would be awesome because of her journey. We can inspire many young girls. So, good evening, Diva. How are you?
A very good evening, Masroor, to you and to your listeners. It's amazing to be here on this show. I know we've been trying for like a long time, but finally today I'm here on your show, and I'm really excited. Looking forward to an interesting conversation. And yeah, let's see what unfolds today.
Yes, let's unfold the mystery of being a journalist. So,
Mhm.
why don't you go and introduce yourself to my audience first so that we all can understand what type of journey and your life has been for all these years as a journalist and what you've been contributing to the society and how you're bringing the change. Once we hear that, then we will move towards the questions for the audience to know and learn from you about your life. Go ahead now.
Sure. So, like you said, okay, my name is Deeba Hasan, and by profession, I am a journalist, but I also do communications and public relations as well. And I've also done some English language teaching. This was in Oman when I was in Oman. And other than that, I think I've, always really enjoyed speaking, public speaking as well. So, emceeing and doing a lot of events as part of that. So this has been my journey, and I first started like obviously when I graduated in journalism, I was looking for opportunities to obviously practice my journalism, and it's not very easy to get a job in your profession. So it took me a little while, and I did some internships and some trainings and everything at different publications, and then finally I landed like a really really interesting internship with some great people at one of the really big media houses in Oman. And that's where my journey started. And alhamdulillah, ever since I've never looked back. And I've just done, what I have had to do. And I also, in the, obviously along the way, I also managed to, expand my, network. So that's been amazing as well. I've come to know so many amazing people over the years. And now I have moved to the UAE since 1 year, but I do have great connections in Oman, and I do go back, and I always want to do that. I always want to keep my contact with Oman, because that's where I grew up, and that's where I've
That's where
made
your roots
friends,
are.
and that's where my roots are as well. So yeah, and I'm here in the UAE now doing what I have to do, and then you can
Ama-
ask me more questions, and I'll be really happy to answer them.
Definitely, I would do that for sure. Before that, just a small question that's from my side that you are a PR professional and an MC as well. So how does the three combo goes in hand, being a journalist, being a PR professional, and an MC? So how do you combine all that and make it as a combo?
Well, I'll tell you what. See, if you start off as a journalist, it becomes really easy for you to learn all the sides of the trade, because talk about communications, talk about public relations, and journalism, emceeing. It's all very related to each other. And like I said, I've always loved speaking. So even when I was in school, I think I started speaking since I was in grade 2. So taking part in recitations and debates and things like that. And that was something that was my passion, because no one ever told me to take part in those recitations or those competitions, for example. It was just me, it was out of passion. And so I always knew that I wanted to do that. I wanted to talk. And I think that's where emceeing came. And other than that, I think, in terms of journalism, so when you're a journalist, you're obviously contacted by a lot of PR professionals for a lot of different things, and this is like a daily routine for us. And so you also sort of learn their trade. You're like, okay, fine, this is what they do, and this, and you do what you have to do. And and also I think communications also comes in that, like corporate communications, for example. So it's all about writing, researching, speaking and things like that. And I think so it's all sort of like, one giant ball, and you have all these different portions. So that's what it is. And I think that's, if you're a journalist, you can really do any of these as well with ease, honestly.
I totally agree with you. Basically, if you are a multi-talented person, so you can fit in any role which is given to you, or which the task which has to be played in any environment, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's begin the journey of Deeba Hasan. From MacVlogs would like to ask you questions so that we know exactly how did the journalism fall into your lap. Okay, these are few questions which I have just wrote it down for you. Let's hope that you can answer them and answer for the audience if we come across any questions by the audience as well. So the first question I'm putting on my screen for you is, did you always wanted to be a journalist when you were at school, or did that come a bit later when you grew up?
Well, okay, this is an interesting question. I mean, see, for me, I think, what, children, when they're younger, they have like a very imaginative mind, and like,
Mindsets.
yeah, exactly. And they want to sort of, like look into different things. And, obviously we're learning a lot of stuff at school at that time, when we're really young. So obviously your imagination grows by the day. And for me, when I was younger, I honestly wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to go into
Wow.
space. And then I realized, as I grew up, I realized, okay, that's a little complicated. So, maybe I did not want to do that. And then I told you, like, ever since I was in grade 2, I was taking part in, like, debates, recitations and things like that. And obviously when I grew up as well, people, in school, my teachers told me that I was a really good writer and that I should keep writing. They liked my storytelling, they liked my public speaking and all of these skills. So no one ever told me, no one ever asked me, no one ever suggested for me to become a journalist. But I think that just came on along the way, because I was like, okay, fine. If I've got all of
It
these
was
skills,
meant to be. It was meant to be because
it was
that was your
totally meant
destiny, I
to be.
would say.
And when you've got all of these skills and you combine them, I think one of the biggest professions that would come in front of you is basically journalism, because that requires all of these skills, researching, writing, speaking, and expanding your network, and so just all of that stuff. So I think it just happened. And obviously when I was and also when I used to look at journalists, reporting, when I used to watch them on TV, or see articles and things like that, I was always very inspired, and I'm like, wow, this is like a very interesting job. I think I want to do that. And I spoke to my parents a little bit about it. They were very supportive. They were like, if whatever you want to do, we're fine with it.
Right
So
profession chosen by the young girl on a very young age. She was very much inspired, and today she is the inspiration for many, I
oh,
would
thank
say.
you very much. Thanks a lot for you to say that. So, yeah, I mean, I think it, like you said, it was meant to be. And obviously, because, when you have those skills and you combine them, I think journalism is one of the best professions for you to take up.
Well, to be
So,
very honest, the field which you have chosen from the very young age, many girls don't know even what they want to be because they are busy in their makeups and tutorials, or I would say more of trying to become a model even at young age. But the profession which you have chosen, that's really remarkable because not all girls want to be in this field, which mainly is dominated by the male domination. Uh, am I rightly said that?
I think, look, a lot of, if you speak about what girls are doing these days, I think it's all to do with like social media. You've got like a lot of different platforms where, if you're sitting ideal for some time, that's where you would go to, and that's where you would spend your time. And then you're like, okay, fine, if I'm on this platform, why don't I start creating my own videos and start doing, whatever they do there. So I think it's not their fault really. I think it's about the availability and the access that people have these days to these social media platforms. So I really wouldn't blame them, but yes, you have to make good use of your time. You have to be productive whenever you can, and yeah. But then other than that, I don't think it's as male dominated still, because there are a lot of girls who are entering into journalism or broadcast journalism or whatever that is. So I don't think I would really say it is male dominated, because obviously we're seeing change, which is great. So yeah, it's definitely changing for the better.
So, in your field of being a journalist and the profession and the work where you're working currently, there might be a lot of competition between male and female journalists. Is that so?
Honestly, I've never really faced any
Competition.
competition from male journalists, because I've really I think what people say is that you have to sort of try and be a better version of yourself every day. So here I'm not competing with anybody. I'm just trying to do what I know how to do, and I
That's the
want to do
spirit.
that in the
That's
best
the
manner.
spirit. I like it.
Because if you sit and try and compete with people, I think you're going to waste your time and energy, and I don't think I have that kind of time or energy to to waste. So definitely, I am not competing with anyone. I just want to do what I do best, and yeah, and I want to like they say, you have to find a
So keep
million ways
doing
to
what
do
you're
your
doing
work better.
best because that's what you are meant for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so my next question. Are you ready for my next question?
Yeah, always throw it at me.
Okay, here's the next question for Deeba Hasan. That's how did you land your first job as a journalist? And was it meant to be on your plate, or someone served you, or you had to work hard for that first job?
Look, I think only very few lucky people in this world get things served on a plate. The rest of us have to work hard for it. And in terms of how I landed the job, so I think while introducing myself, I was saying something about I graduated as a journalist, but then I was trying to look for a job in journalism as well. But it does not come easy. You have to go through a lot of other stuff to get into what you want to do. And
Sorry,
okay,
I'm interrupting you, but I just want to tell everybody the word which you mentioned that it's not easy. So, audience, nothing is easy. Everything comes with hard work, dedication, and commitment. Continue,
absolutely.
Diva.
So like I was saying that obviously you have to go through a lot of other things to get into what you want to do. And the same for me. I did I did a job in events when I first graduated, and that was not my favorite, but I also was writing freelance for a tier 1 publication in Oman. And that was a very enjoyable task that I took up. And I was writing freelance, and I was also doing this job as an events person. And then what happened, like, I also started to contribute. I started to just contribute articles to newspapers, for and that's how you start, because journalists, we start like that. There's no specific job that we have to take up to practice our trade. You can do some internships, you can do training, you can just contribute for free, things like that. And so that's what I was doing. And I did manage to so I got an internship at Sapco Media, which is like one of the very big media houses in
One of the
Oman.
leading media agencies in Oman.
Yes, and I got my internship there, and I was
And
so happy.
I know that program, which might be inspired by one of the top shows of in TV, Star Plus TV, Coffee with Karan.
Uh,
Wouldn't say that. It's Coffee with Diva.
a lot of people say that, but that was not even that. I didn't keep that name. It was my editor who kept that name for that
Yeah, but I
page that
used
I
to
was
relate
doing.
that more of Coffee with Diva.
Everybody
So
did.
anyway,
Yeah, everybody did. It's not just you. So
okay.
I landed this internship, and it was such a great team there. The editor was so supportive, the deputy editor as well, and everybody else in the in the media room. Like, everybody was super supportive. I came as an intern, but I was not doing things that interns would do. I was doing things like what a proper professional journalist would do. So they gave me that space, they gave me that platform to rise and shine. And honestly, I have to thank them. I'm still in touch with the editor, and I have a lot to thank her for as well, because she gave me my platform. She gave me this platform, Coffee with Diba. And I was interviewing a lot of people, because it came weekly, and I had to think of the next person, like, and we had a lot of obviously people to interview, but then sometimes you have to choose, and you have to see what goes along with this issue. For example, what is a theme that I have to pick for this issue. So I did some amazing interviews with that, with some great personalities. I learned so
Great
much along the
personalities, I am
way.
sure. I used to be a very fond of Y magazine, and I used to read that. And every Thursdays it used to come in Oman on the weekend time, or maybe from Tuesday onwards, if I'm not wrong. So we used to go and collect our free collections and all. We used to see who now Diva has bought on her coffee with Diva, in terms to
Yeah.
understand and read their stories about. And that was
Mhm.
really interesting. And I used to learn and understand, oh, I know this guy, I know them. So that was really interesting, and thumbs up to you for being great there.
Thank you very much. So, like I told you, I interviewed some amazing personalities, learned so much along the way, and I did so much networking as well while I was there. And I was not doing just that page; I was doing everything else for the magazine as well. Because, like I told you, the editor was very supportive. She let me do what I wanted to do and whatever I wanted to write about. So, I was so grateful for that internship, and then obviously it did convert to like a full time job because they really liked what I did there. And yeah, that's how my first job as a journalist came. I was doing some freelance work before that as well for some tier one publications, but then this was like my first real job, I think, as a journalist.
Now, this question, which I feel is related to education and qualification, so maybe this can help the young aspirants. So let me just put it across to you. In terms of the education, what qualification do young aspirants need to have to become a journalist? Can you guide them on
Hmm.
that?
I think I think that in terms of qualifications, you don't really need a degree in journalism per se.
You just
Um,
need a talkative mouth to keep on talking, I would say. Ba, 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 ba,
so
ba, like a chatterbox, right? That's what
that is
journalists
that
do.
is that is part of it. That is part of it for sure. But then I think that your degree can be in any discipline. That's fine. It's just that I think there are some skills that you need to have. So it's not as about qualifications as much, but then it's definitely about skills. And I think some of the skills are
I
like
think the first thing would be C. That's confidence. To face the mic, face the people, face the
yeah,
environment, face the
yeah.
society.
Definitely, I
That's
think
more important.
confidence is something that is definitely
Yeah,
like number one. And without confidence, you really cannot do much. So if you're a
true.
shy person, I think, but then you know what? Even if you're a shy person and you love doing journalism, I think if you will eventually become a confident person, because otherwise you cannot really do anything much in
Yeah,
journalism.
but I think you
So,
can guide the young girls and boys out there for becoming a young journalist. So in terms of the qualifications, what exactly those qualifications and the direction they can have through you would be ideal to express yourself now.
look, I'll tell you what. So I think a degree in journalism is not really required. What it does, it helps you, because obviously they're teaching you everything about journalism in the degree, for example, like undergraduate degree.
Mhm.
But you can do it even if you have the passion. Like if you've studied engineering, for example, and then you want to come do journalism. I think that really helps. Why? Because you know more than normal journalists would. You know what I mean? So you can talk about you can write about technical stuff as well, which normal journalists wouldn't be able to understand easily. So for you it becomes really easy, right? And let's talk about finance professionals. If you have a degree in finance, you can actually still come into journalism, and you can write about finance topics, about budgets and things like that, along with doing other stuff as well. But it's just that you have to start somewhere. And I think a degree is not so important. What is more important is your skills, writing skills, researching skills, your confidence. Writing is quite important, because obviously you have to have clarity in your writing. And I think researching is also one of the most important things if you want to be a journalist, especially if you want to do unbiased reporting. If you want to be objective in your reporting, you have to be like super skilled at research. Yeah.
Well, I guess one of the audience who have been participating or who have just joined our live, his name is Mr. Uwais Al Balushi. I'm sure he's from Oman, and he has a question for you, which I would put it across to you to answer that. Have you ever thought to report political issues nowadays as being journalist? You can answer that question, and then we'll move back to our questions and answers. Please go ahead with that question.
Look, I'll give an answer to that. In terms of, I think whatever you want to report, you can report about that. Okay, anything and everything. It's just that you have to make sure you're conforming with the
The
regulations
facts
of
and figures.
with whatever country you are in. You have to conform with the regulations. You have to make sure you know the facts and figures. You have to make sure you're well researched as well, because unless you're well researched, you really cannot be reporting objectively. So to report objectively, you have to know all sides of the stories, and you have to make sure you're just saying the truth. So you pick from here, you write it, and that objectivity has to reflect in your writing as well. And then just report the facts to people. That's all what your responsibility is. You're not the judiciary. You're not going to start judging things and starting to influence public opinion. You have to just present the facts. That's what you have to do. So my like, I think this is what I would advise. Not only, I mean, it's not only an answer to that question, but like, just talking to people in general. I think that's like how to report sensitive subjects, for example. And like I said, you have to conform with the rules and regulations of whatever country you are in, for
But with the
example.
right authorities as well. That's more important.
Absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
Mr. Oais Al Balushi, you might have got the answer from the expert Deeba Hasan on political issues. I think that's not the whole idea, but that's one of the subject where the journalists, but there are different type of journalists who cover whether it's political, sports, entertainment. Every journalist has a different passion for different subject and topics which they come across on the media to showcase the topics. So I think you
Absolutely.
must have got the answer by Diva why she can or anyone can cover different topics for sure. Okay, Diva. So we have another question that is, what are what are some of the highlights or memories from your career you can share with us, which could be highlighted by you, but it can be a great memory for the people out there to connect with?
Well, honestly, there are a lot. There are so many. See, when you're a journalist, you get a lot of exposure. You get to meet people that you might have known them before you started your career, and you always wanted to meet them, or you always thought about them, and saw their stories and things like that. But you never really thought that you'd get an opportunity to meet them or interview them and things like that. So I've actually, people that I used to, like, read about before entering journalism. I actually went on to, like, interview these people, while I was doing journalism. So I think that is something, that is one, your networking as well, things like that. That is, I think, where those are some of the highlights and memories, obviously. And if I have to, like, mention something, I remember this one story that I did. um, it was about squalid conditions in girls hostels, actually. I did that story, and that was something very interesting, because it got picked up by a lot of people. It got a lot of attention as well, and nobody had really talked about that in the media before. And like I told you, even if something is sensitive, you still have to report it in an objective manner, give all sides of the story, present the truth. So that's what I did. And I visited a few hostels, and then I actually found out that the conditions are really bad. People actually are not supposed to live in conditions like that, and forget about studying there. You can't study when you're living in conditions like that. Like, I saw that there were these rooms which were not very big in size, and there were like 8 girls, 10 girls, 12 girls in those rooms, for example. So that's not the way to live. You can't study in those conditions. So I remember I reported that. It got a lot of attention, and people, they really appreciated my work in that. And I also remember when I went to Turkey for a media trip, I came back and I wrote an article on Istanbul. I've always wanted to visit Istanbul, and that was my first visit. It was organized by Turkish Airlines. And when I came back, I wrote an article because I was already very passionate about going to Turkey, going to Istanbul. So I remember I wrote this article, and the ambassador of Turkey, actually I'm supposed to say Turkey now because that's the official name. So the ambassador, I used to know him very well, and he sent me this amazing coffee table book with, and he signed it. He wrote a little note in that, and he signed it. So I was, that is one of the things that I remember. I still have that coffee table book with his note in it. So that reminds me of some of the, the good work that I had done. And there was, and other than that, obviously, in terms of meeting people, I've met some of, the who's who visited, Oman when I was doing my, journalism. And I also remember, I got to meet Prince Charles, so that was one of the highlights as well. And yeah, there are certain highlights and memories, but this is all I can think of right now.
Hello everyone, I am back again. I'm so sorry for the interruption for the network which has happened. That's where we lost the network connection with my guest. So let's hope she will be back
I'm
in
here.
few.
I'm here.
Yeah, she's here. Sorry, I was just saying sorry to all the audience who were watching. And we had a disruption of a network because the electricity issues. So I apologize for that. So we can continue, Diva, from where you had left.
I answered that question about highlights and memories,
Okay.
and I
So
did
we have
mention.
another question from the audience poll, and that would let's take that first, and then we'll take it forward. What do you think about the current biased journalism in India and elsewhere?
Okay, so I think I did answer some of that, while I was, answering some of your questions actually. In terms of biased reporting, look, I think that the purpose of journalism, the purpose of journalists is to, get to know the truth, research, get to know the truth, write that reflect that should reflect in your, the objectivity should reflect in your writing, report the facts, and that is it. That's where you close. That's where your job is over. All right, and you have to make sure you're getting all sides of the story covered. Okay, and when you finish that when you finish that report, you file it. It's done. Your job is done. So I think that people who, no journalist is supposed to be affiliated to any political organization or anything like that. Unfortunately, in today's world, yes, we do find that a lot. In many
Because
parts
of
of
the
the world.
fan base, if you like certain politician or certain celebrity being joined as a politician, then the journalists do follow them because they are the fans of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's one. I think that's one idea. But other than that, I think there's also, like, because obviously there's a lot of affiliations these days, and unfortunately, actually, because that, the profession of journalism and, like, the job of journalists is really to get to know the facts, to get to know the truth, and report just that.
True.
So I really cannot, I think the people that, have affiliations or anything like that, they cannot be called journalists. They're more like publicists. So
Mhm.
we need to start, changing our vocabulary for such people. We have to start calling them publicists, not journalists. you know so that is something that we can do from our side, because you cannot really change people, right?
I totally agree with you with your comments. I think Waisal Balushi really wants to learn from you, and I think you have become inspiration for him. Thank you for the reply. What is the most wonderful part of being a journalist? That's the question he has put it across again.
What is the most wonderful part of being a journalist? I think that fulfillment and that satisfaction that you get when you report about something, when you report the facts about something. like it might be a burning issue, people might be concerned, and then when you research all sides of the story, when you speak to experts in that field, and then you write your thing up, or you prepare your report for TV or whatever that is, and then when it goes out, when it gets published, I think that is something that gives you so much satisfaction and fulfillment. So I think
Hmm.
one of the biggest things about journalism is that it's a very fulfilling profession, and I've said that to so many people I've known, that it's one of the most fulfilling professions you can find. And of course, other things that come along with it, like I told you, you expand your network, you get to meet, like famous people, celebrities, things like that. You get to
I think I
experience.
will continue the same question of the networking which you have just mentioned, because networking is really important in everyday life, whether it's different professions or all, but it's related to your profession. I would say networking is really important in journalism. How do you manage to expand your network of connections? Do you have any different formula or different funda which we don't have, or we do a different way of networking with people? How do journalists do that because of their content, or because of their relationships, or because they're always on the field and outdoor? It becomes easier for them to network. Would you like to answer that?
It's actually like sort of a mixture of whatever you just said. So there is no formula. When you are a
Mhm.
journalist, you have to make sure that you are networking, because you know what, that is your bread and butter, honestly. Because if you have to get stories from these people, right? And who do you network with, for example?
Stories.
Yeah, where do you get your stories from otherwise, if you're not networking? Where do you get great quotes
Hmm.
for stories that you're working on, if you're not
But the
networking?
journalists can come up with their own stories by just assuming that what their lives are all about. Am I right?
Look, I think that does not matter what.
That's the
There are,
wrong way.
there are different formulas, of course, but the thing is that, no, I think that, of course, assumption is something that we don't do. That's number one. But other than that, it's just that you have to network with people to get to
That
get
was just a
amazing
humor,
stories.
not a question.
Yeah, I got it. That's why I didn't answer it at the beginning.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that networking is something that is just, you cannot do without it. It's inevitable, because like I have experienced it so many times when we have had to go for like a splash copy. You're writing about something, and that's going to go on the front page of the newspaper, and you don't have quotes from like experts or government officials and things like that. So what do you do then? And I've had to experience this a couple of times, where I have had to make phone calls after working hours for government officials, like in this part of the world, they
Get me
finish
some
early.
new guest for my show. That's what you do after the work hours?
No, it's not about that. I was just speaking about, like, how do you have to get quotes from
Hmm.
like government officials or authorities, because without those quotes, your story is incomplete. You have to have strong quotes to support your story. So I remember, because I had those kinds of connections, I've actually been able to make phone calls late, and get really great quotes from these people, because the paper had to go the paper had to go for print, to get published the next day. So you have to make network, you have to expand your network, you have to make connections.
I
That
think
is
your
something
phone
that is
has a lot of contacts, a lot of network you have. So I think anyone can tap on you for big shots in Dubai and around the world for sure. It's not a humor, but I
well,
think it's a reality.
I mean, you have to, like I said, you have to have these connections, because otherwise, really, you
You're
cannot be a
nowhere to be
complete
seen. That's
journalist.
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's take Mr. Wes Al Baluchi's another question. I think he's a big fan of yours now. He's
Okay.
coming
Well,
up with different questions. I think he
um,
needs the answers to become a next journalist.
maybe.
That's not bad. That's
Well,
what the
I'll
whole
be
journey
happy
is
if
all
I can
about of
inspire
yours.
someone. I'll be happy if I can inspire someone, for sure.
Yeah. He's writing, how would I distinguish between a journalist and a social activist? Very good question, I would say.
Hmm. Yeah. Look, I'm not a social activist really, but I think what social activists do is that they probably see, in terms of journalism, what we do is, like I told you, we just report, we learn the facts, we research, we get quotes, supportive quotes and stuff like that, and then we just report the truth, right? And I think
Hmm.
social activists, they're really talking about, they are, like, for example, if there is an unfair situation happening somewhere, they would normally go there and, try to highlight that and bring it to the notice, bring it to the attention of the people, try to get local authorities to, like, intervene and things like that. I mean, for journalism, we're not really social activists, but yes, some journalists are, because they're they take their profession very seriously, and I think they're very passionate as well. So what they want to do is they want to change public opinion, they want to influence public opinion, things like that. But I think journalism really should be about reporting the facts. Okay, of course, sometimes the facts are, it becomes like sometimes your job becomes like that of a social activist, but
It's
then
very
I
challenging job. Very
it is.
challenging.
It definitely is a very challenging job, But yeah, I mean, there are some similarities and there are some differences. So I do understand that, that question that has come from Mr. OS. I completely agree with that question. Like, yes, so there are some differences. Like there are,
I have
similarities.
another two questions, and then we will have some little bit exciting questions, and then we will wrap it up as well. So let's finish with these two questions, which is so important for the audience. That would be, what are some of the challenges you had to face while pursuing the journalism? That's one. And the last question would be, what is your advice to the aspiring journalists out there? That's it.
Okay. You'll have to remind me of the next question. Okay, when I'm
Okay,
done
the
with this
question
one.
which I asked first, what are the some of the challenges you had to face while pursuing journalism on your journey? Okay,
So I think, look, any job, any and every job comes with its set of challenges. I don't think there is a job in this world that has no challenges. I think the president of the United States also has many, many, many challenges every single day. So I think that especially younger people, when they think of choosing a profession, sometimes they're like, what, I want something that I just I want to just get an office job and I want to sit and just do my work. So what do you think? Are you not going to get challenges in that job? There's challenges in every single job every single day. And as journalists, we do have a lot of challenges, and especially, like I told you, one of the challenges is that um, when you're looking for quotes, from authorities, sometimes you just might not, for your stories, of course, for your news, you might not get those. You might not get those on time. How do you get those? They're busy, things like that. And that's when I said, like, how networking comes into play. So how networking comes into play is that, if you've got great connections, you just take your phone and you start calling. And if, for example, one of your contacts is busy, another might be available. So you have to make sure you're networking a lot. That is one challenge, and obviously there's other challenges as well. I cannot list everything here because obviously, like, I don't think we have that kind of time, but I think that's why you have to, like, have a really good network. Sometimes getting stories might be a challenge. You don't know what is the story, for example, especially when you're just starting off. And I've had that experience as well. So how do you decide, how do you get stories? So I think for that as well, you have to do a lot of reading. Reading is something very, very important. If you have to be very well versed with current affairs, with whatever is going on in the country that you're living in, and obviously whatever is happening around the globe. You have to make sure you know what's going on. You have to keep a tab on every single thing that's happening, and that's how you get your stories. You have to pay attention to what's going on locally as well, because obviously most of the stories that you will work on will be local stories. So I think you have to, like, reading is very important, being aware, being alert, talking to your network is very important as well. So, like, what's going on these days? What are you doing, or what's happening in the city? So I think that also, like, is a challenge, getting stories when you first start off. So that's how you can solve it, I
amazing,
guess.
amazing, awesome, splendid, fascinating by the reply of yours. Okay, the last question: what is your advice to aspiring journalists,
Aspiring journalists, I think
or
one of
maybe
the
to the
things.
youth out there? What's your advice to become a journalist? That would be a better question, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. So I think for aspiring journalists, never be afraid to ask questions. You know,
Questions makes
you
you
have to
more vulnerable.
you have to make sure you're asking questions. And I think just in terms of approaching people as well. So journalism, it requires you to approach a lot of people. Sometimes they're like VVIPs, and you might be like a little intimidated by their presence, and you're like, am I should I go approach them? I mean, they might say something that might hurt me, or it might insult me in front of people, things like that.
Maybe you
But
will be embarrassed in front of the people, asking someone which you feel that you will get an answer no. So don't run away from no.
don't run away from no. Exactly. Like, so what if they say no? They've just said no, so they refuse to answer your question, and I think that's
Move on
completely
to the
fine
next
because
one.
exactly, right? So like, and especially when you're a pro journalist, you get a lot of no's. I think the people that are just
And
starting out.
always be ready to accept a no in a positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the people that say no, sometimes, okay, mostly what happens is they will refuse very politely. And that's absolutely fine. Sometimes they might say something that might embarrass you a little bit, or you might think you're insulted in front of a group of people. But you know what? Honestly, that's just your stepping stone. I think that's your stepping stone towards success. You're not supposed to, like, okay, fine. If you get one rejection, you cannot just go back and be like, you know what, I cannot be a
And start
journalist anymore.
crying. And
I
start
have to, yeah,
crying.
I have to just leave this. Maybe something else is better for me, and all of that. No, that's not how you do it. So when you like how they say failure is your first step towards success. So I think rejection is also your first step towards getting all those really big stories in the
I
future.
would say I would just like to define that the rejection is the first step to redefine yourself.
Well, there you go. I think you
Okay,
also have like a lot to share with young aspirants. Maybe you can say a word or two as well.
definitely. That's the whole idea, that's the whole concept of changing the mindsets of people by being positive in this world.
Yeah.
So thank you, Miss Deeba Hasan, for sharing your journey and all what we had to learn from you today. And before we go, we always ask our guest, especially I ask my guest, for a small shout out for Mac Vlogs so that can inspire many, many, many more people to come and be part of Mac Vlogs journey, and I can bring different people. So before you can just go for a small shout out, everyone, if you haven't subscribed or shared Mac Vlogs, please go and press the subscribe button for Mac Vlogs so that I can keep on bringing wonderful people like Diva who can definitely change the people's mindset with their journey of life and the profession they are into. Thank you once again, Diva. A shout out from you would be an honor.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. And I think I want to tell everyone that I've been following your journey as well with Mac Vlogs, and especially
Oh, really?
ever since you started doing these interviews. And I think you've been doing an amazing job. And I would have come onto your show like a long time ago, but things happen, and I was busy with moving and all of that.
I think
So
you were exploring, or you were just waiting for me to grow a bit more with my more journey. That
that's
could be
not
one of the
true at all.
answers for me.
That's not true at all. I was just
Or you were waiting
really,
for me
really
to be
busy.
famous. Alhamdulillah, I'm not famous. I'm still a simple person, everyone. I'm
But I
not
think
bossy being
But
around
I
here.
think you're doing a great job, and I've always told you that. I've always told you that you're
Yeah,
doing a
I know
great
that.
job.
You're
Some of
being a
your
little sister to me always. Thank you for always pushing me to the next level and always giving me the confidence and the boost, which always
you're welcome.
requires everybody of us. So
So
thank you,
yes,
Diva.
everybody, please subscribe. Please subscribe.
Thank you once again. So thank you once again, Diva, for being a great guest on Mac Vlogs. And from today onwards, anyway, we were part of the family, but today you're part of Mac Vlogs family. So thank you so much. Keep smiling, keep inspiring, and keep on with what you're doing because that's going to really change the world in a positive way. Everybody, see you next time.
All right.
Don't go
Bye.
anywhere. Take care. Good night. God bless all the family out there, friends. Enjoy the Eid, which is coming up. Eid Mubarak in advance as well. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.